As a performer, your body is there.
Hi, I'm Mad Kate, and you're listening to Sweat, Sexuality, Work, Extraction, Art, Theatrics. Sweat is a series of conversations about performance and performativity of the sexual and sexualized body at work, where work is broadly defined as the labor of survival, the labor of care, creativity, and capital A art. How exactly do we define our work? And how does that work entangle and circumscribe our sexual identities, our creative lives, and the way in which we provide care? How do we perform tasks, acts of care, and identities? Anchored in our always already racialized and sexualized bodies, our complex intersectionalities, these conversations are a means of relating through work to each other. I hope they contribute to dialogues which normalize sex work as work, and all work is deserving of respect, healthy conditions, and a living wage.
I think I always feel naked during my first note or my first communication from the position of the stage, because that's the point at which either you mask or you're completely authentic or a little bit of both. And it's a decision that has to be made as a performer, I think, that affects how the performance goes, but also affects how you feel during and after.
Hello and Happy New Year. My conversation this month is with multidisciplinary artist, musician, producer, and creative technologist Sky Deep. Sky Deep's work fuses raw emotion, social consciousness, and technical mastery. I want to mention ahead of time that today's episode covers topics around mental health and suicide, so decide for yourself whether this is something you want to hear about for today. I also want to say that I think today's conversation, and hopefully the theme for the whole year, delves into the topic of care, and I think it's a really important conversation to have. I'm really excited to share what I speak about with Sky.
Rest, to me, mostly looks like my basic needs are met. Therefore, I can work, or I cannot work.
Born in Los Angeles and shaped by the underground scenes of New York and Berlin, Sky merges electronic music, live instrumentation, and performance art into electrifying, genre-defying shows. A driving force in queer and POC visibility within electronic music, Sky founded Reclaim the Beats Festival and leads her label, Reveller Records, as a platform for community-driven experimentation. I think I first met you when you first came to Berlin. You were doing music for Marit's film. When we're together, we can be everywhere, right?
Yes.
You were
right. I was putting together a compilation to put out actually on my label for the film, but I was also actually doing post-production audio for the film.
Cool. Which, when I think about it, I mean, just because we're touching on it, for me, when we're together, we can be everywhere is such a iconic, beautiful capsule of the queer porn scene at that time. Of course, it's always a time capsule.
Absolutely. That was a very special, like, sort of nostalgic place, because when I look at the scene now, it's very different to me. So yeah, it's a really extra special time with, I guess, our generation of the community and how we interacted with each other and sort of our little economy. Because, you know, the work that I did on that film was also in exchange for Marit helping me finish my film.
I'm sorry, can you remind me the name of your film that you made at that time?
It's a totally made up word. I don't expect you to remember it. Enactone. Yeah,
that
which was
so amazing.
It's a combination of enact, as in to reenact, and to atone. And I created this as the title of a vampire holiday.
So incredible. So I loved this film. It's actually been a couple years since I've seen it, but I did take your film to screen it at a anti-militarist, anti-capitalist conference of all these radical activists from all over the place. And
amazing.
It was cool because a lot of the folks there really couldn't legally have any access to queer porn, to porn, and especially cool porn, cool queer porn.
And they like people were so moved. Like and
I love
like
to hear
lives
that.
that feeling of lives changed. I mean, you brought in themes around history, racism. To me, this film was trying to do a lot of different things and did do a lot of different things.
My initial approach to the film was to be pure fun at first, but I approach a lot of my work by doing historical research, especially when dealing with a vampire that could have lived hundreds of years ago, you know. So since I cast myself as the lead character, I wanted to come up with a realistic story of a Black person in the US who may have become a vampire 100 years ago. And at that time, it was like 2014 when I first was writing it. And so this caused me to do research. I decided my vampire was 100 years old, and I did research back to 1914 in the US. For me, at first, the fun was about vampire aesthetics, timepieces, and wardrobe. And so I started to research style of Black people in 1914 in the US. And I had a really difficult time finding images because at that time, you know, a lot of Black people were slaves or just being freed from slavery. And, you know, so of course there were pictures of people in fields or in servitude. But I wanted to see images of people going to parties and having a good old time. And it was really hard to find. And unfortunately, I found some very disturbing images that changed my whole trajectory of how I would approach the film. I saw a Black woman, very young, hanging from a tree by her neck. And I couldn't unsee it. And then it was no longer just a fun, silly vampire project. It became much more than that for me. And I felt like I had to make a decision of whether or not I was going to honor true history or try to keep it light. And so since I was making the film for me and not for any particular career gain, I just decided to keep it true and just really just integrate it. And even though it was going to be an erotic film, I was taking a big chance because also being a Black queer on the planet Earth, you know, we also have tons of Black people who are, you know, homophobic or phobic against anything that is not with their religion, like whatever the religion might be, you know. So here I am playing with the occult, if you will, like vampirism, as well as mixing part of the narrative with very traumatic things for the diaspora and mixing it with sexual stuff. Also with the concept of like a vampire religion and atonement somehow. So this is very sacrilege for a lot of people.
It's amazing. It's just you put so much in there. It's so bold, and like what came out was awesome.
Thank you. Yeah, it was a good time. It was really, really good time. And it was very DIY. I mean, I think the whole budget was like less than $1,000, including feeding people. Like it was, and I mean, I did a lot of the tech work myself. I taught myself how to do things because I couldn't afford to really bring people in. But then there was a lot of people volunteering. It was really beautiful.
That's so cool. And such an aspect that we don't always talk about when we say things are low budget is like how much you do on your own, how much you learn. And I know you especially, I mean, just having known you over some years, you like to learn how to do new tricks, new trades, new skills. You're like, okay, if I can't pay someone to do that, I'm just going to do it myself. Plus, like, you're good at it. So, you know, you have that nerdy side. You're like, I'm just going to learn how to do VR. I'm just going to learn how to work this camera. I'm going to, you know, whatever. So.
It's a beautiful skill to have, but it's also a trap into overworking yourself constantly.
Yes, it is. Of course, like, there's beauty in things being that low budget. We're learning new things together. None of us is earning money and we're making a beautiful thing. But yeah, we get overworked. We can't pay the rent after that, maybe, you know.
Mm-hmm. Or you gamble your rent money on a piece of equipment and you go, oh, don't worry, I'll figure it out later. That's me. I hated Vegas. I lived in Vegas for a while, because I hated the idea of just squandering your money away, just gambling it, just watching it just piss away. But You give me a couple of bucks and either a PR budget or an equipment budget, and I am gambling.
Right? It's just like dressed in different way. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just, I wanted to go back to the fact that your film was meant to be an erotic film. Do you think of it as porn?
It's definitely porn. I would consider it just like not super hardcore compared to some porn. Like it's like art porn, if you will. Yeah. Like that's how I kind of see it, because for me it was really important. I mean, it also was a feature, and it wasn't just like various scenes of sex. Like there was a whole narrative and storyline which dominated most of what we saw. There's the narrative. So that's why I always just call it a film. I mean, and actually every porn film I talk about, I just call it a film. It's just a film. But yeah, for me, it was really important to have a strong storyline.
How did you see that film, that it has erotic content, or your films that have erotic content, as a way to do care work?
Well, there was a lot in the film that I could talk about in regards to care. Everything from writing the piece and thinking about community, but also thinking about what I need as an individual. But then in working with other people and collaborating with the other performers in the film, you know, everything was definitely about consent and desire. Like people had to want to do the thing. There was no like, it's in the script, so this is what you're doing. It was very collaborative development of whatever was going to happen in the film. And I look at that as care, because I also have been in situations where I've been a performer and asked to do things that maybe I was uncomfortable, or maybe there wasn't enough time to prepare emotionally to do it. And it was time to go. Action. We're on a time limit. Do it. And that, for me, doesn't sit well. So I appreciate that we had the flexibility and that we chose the way that we would work together at all times, and nothing was ever rushed, especially when it came to the intimacy.
Yeah.
So that was very careful. There's also care involved in the direction and post-production processes. Like when other people came in to assist me with their expertise and stuff that I was new to, for example, like Jasko Vifus helped me with editing. Marit was co-directing with me when I couldn't be, I couldn't see myself in the scene, so she would help me see myself. But we had the aspects of different bodies, different races, and people needing to be sensitive to each other. The entire process involved attentive care.
When you think of queer porn as a genre, how is producing films like that an act of care? Do you see it that way?
The answer to this question comes to me from my experience of touring the film and showing it around the world to different audiences and having the chance to speak with people directly after them seeing it. There were some people that came to me and said, like, especially some Black people, they were like, thank you so much for putting us on the screen in this way of showing desire and showing us doing something else other than XYZ. There were also some people that were like, how could you mix that and that?
Right.
And there were also some people that felt that the sort of the mythical vampire attack was way too unconsensual of a vision for them.
Okay.
That they were bothered by even just that aspect of the lurking vampire who might unconsensually bite you. So,
right.
Some of these things, I did not expect these types of reactions and conversations to come up. I was just indulging my own artistic ideas. And this helped me to really see how impactful art can be on the individual. And it's a big responsibility. You have to have the responsibility to yourself to honor your own wishes. But I think it's really great when you can be aware enough to offer trigger warnings or help people know whether they should watch it or not, depending on, how they might feel. And this is something that, you just don't know how different people will react. And you can't please everyone, but you just have to try to do your best to give a synopsis that helps people decide to watch it or not.
How does it feel to have your own body in your artwork? Because, there's, as a musician, sometimes, because I know that you'll produce music, we'll hear the music that you've created, but we don't see you. Sometimes I see you DJing, we see you, and we see the music you're making, and sometimes you're even more embodied. You're drumming, or like I see you vocalizing, or doing any number of like making your music. And in this, it's like it's so embodied. You're on the screen. You're vulnerable. Like, how does it feel to kind of be those different spaces in which your body like appears in your art?
Yeah, actually, that was a huge therapeutic breakthrough for me to have chosen to perform on camera, for all to see. Like, I've actually been a very modest person. I wouldn't even change clothes in front of the basketball team in the locker room when I was in high school. I would wait for everyone to leave, even if I had to be late to class, and I just very shy. And now I moved to Europe in my late 30s, 40s, and I'm gonna suddenly get naked and do sexy things on camera and then put it on a big screen? Are you crazy? So, yep. This was my second adolescence, by the way.
Wow. Wait, Sky, can I ask you, how old were you when you did that film?
I was 40.
That is amazing.
Yeah, but
Sorry,
it was a big moment. Like, I had to really decide. Like, that's why it took me so long to finish the film, because I was struggling with also editing, seeing my exposed self, and then imagining putting it on a screen in front of strangers. That was new for me. Like, I had done, been involved with sex work before at various points of my life. That wasn't a problem. It was more just the public display.
Wow. Obviously, like, there's the aspect of clothing, and there's a kind of vulnerability there. I think vulnerability comes in a lot of different forms, of course, too, because there was other vulnerable content in the film that wasn't sexual, I would say, right? And and I think there's a vulnerability when you are playing music, something you're passionate about. And so I'm curious about when you're exposing yourself, your vulnerability in other spaces, how is that different or the same? Or
Well, I think that now that you ask me this question, I think I always feel naked during my first note or my first communication from the position of the stage, because that's the point at which either you mask or you're completely authentic, or a little bit of both. And it's a decision that has to be made as a performer, I think, that affects how the performance goes, but also affects how you feel during and after. So every time I perform something, of course, there's always this insecure feeling of like, oh my gosh, am I going to mess up? Or is it going to sound good? And at the end of the day, it's showtime. You got to do it. So something's going to come out. It's up to how you manage that energy of how it will show itself. And so I'm still working out different techniques for those moments. Performing, whether it's playing with sticks on a drum kit, and I'm not really a drummer, but I took 5 lessons, and now I'm on stage in a fantastic costume, So I better play less. Good. Yeah, I don't know. It's just kind of a part of my journey for the majority of my life. So I've become very comfortable with this discomfort.
You mentioned masking. Do you want to talk about masking as it relates to neurodivergence?
Sure. I mean, only now that I officially really got the diagnosis of being autistic and possibly ADHD. That's the next test coming. As an older person now, this helps explain a lot for me. A lot of what I was calling social anxiety before. I didn't know what else to call it, or just calling shyness or nervousness or whatever. Or sometimes the crash that happens. I mean, I think every performer gets a crash kind of after a big show. You kind of like unpack it days later. But yeah, there were just some things as far as just masking in my daily life that being a performer, it's really hard sometimes to differentiate what is your personality mask or your survival mask versus your performance mask. And so on one hand, because I've been so good at individually in my own life masking, this assisted me in my performance work because it was a skill that I was used to using. I'm still learning a lot about myself, and the only reason that the diagnosis helps me now is to give myself more grace and not judge myself or be so hard on myself, and to give myself what I need for performance times or for my artistic endeavors. Now I'm at a place where I'm just like, okay, no more overworking and overstimulating myself to survive in the game. You know, I've been trying to do that all my life. So how about now the unmasking is I'm going to do whatever I want. I used to call it quirky or eccentric. No, actually, that's just me. And it's fine. And that's what I'm doing. And no more of this like trying to fit in your box. And yet, unfortunately, it took me till the age of 50, 51 to kind of come to that clarity. But it allows a lot of healing for myself of past time. So I would say that when I was making Enactone, the film, that was a special unmasking free moment that I felt for myself. And there's definitely been some times on stage where I felt completely unmasked. But also as a performer, there's a sense of duty. Like if you're performing, there is a character that you choose or that you're given. And so it is an artistry. It's a craft, being on stage or being on camera. So I don't want to take away from the fact that with or without neurodiversity, it's a skill to jump into character and, you know, deliver.
Absolutely. As the language around neurodiversity becomes more, I would say, mainstreamed, maybe more accessible, like you can pull up Instagram and find something where people are talking about their experiences of diagnostics and understanding themselves a little bit better, maybe later in life. Also, as like the label autism got moved from it being a separation between Asperger's and autism, and now the autism spectrum is being widened, so more people are also finding themselves inside of the spectrum of autism. I just listened to a podcast about it where also there's this, now there's a kind of a need to create at least an understanding that there's like a severe autism and less severe forms of autism.
I want to touch on that because
I'd love to hear about it.
There's a lot of these words and categories floating around, you know,
right?
And it's usually from a neurotypical person's point of view. They're trying to figure out a box for a spectrum. How? So many would perceive the idea of using severe or more or less severe as an ableist approach to discussing the topic, because the difficulties that a person can have in their life and in interacting with the general typical world can still be very serious for someone so-called less severe.
Yeah.
So just because a person might be nonverbal versus a person who can brush their own teeth and make a schedule and live alone for 10 years does not take away the fact that survival for the so-called less severe case is freaking difficult, especially because it's sort of an invisible disability.
Yeah.
But the tough thing is there's varying levels. So the majority of my life, I have been able to function and do amazing things. But that was at the sacrifice of my own self, trying to match what was expected of me or expected of general people in the world when it comes to the working life. And what that did in the end was nearly kill me because it was not sustainable.
Yeah.
As a result of my symptoms, I have chronic illness, chronic body pain that nobody sees. And they would say, but that's not autism. Well, yeah, it's actually related. People with autism who could be so-called what they were calling Asperger's or high functioning before, you know, they have invisible stuff going on that requires accommodations in order for them to achieve the same things in life, perhaps as maybe someone else. So some of the highly achieved people on the spectrum either have a really good support system or have had a great support growing up or something that puts them in a position where they can achieve. But if you didn't or don't have that, then the masking and the effort, especially without official accommodations, become difficult. And then especially as any marginalized person, women and brown people are less diagnosed than white men. You know, it's mostly always been seen as like a white boy's disease or disorder. I like to call it a condition and not a disorder. You know, but still right now in Germany, the diagnosis world is a bit outdated. But I'd say in the US, in the UK, it's a bit more progressive nowadays. Yeah.
Thank you for all of that. And it's interesting that you also talked about performance and masking because, yeah, in a sense, masking is a kind of performance even in the daily, right? I'm curious for you, how would you describe masking showing up for you in your life? Is that just about fitting in, or is that, I don't want to put words, so it's a question.
No, sometimes it can be about fitting in, because when you stand out, you know, like one of my things is even though I'm a performer, I really don't like a lot of attention. Like I'm a wallflower at the party. I want to be stealth, you know? When I'm on stage, that's different. That's a role. That's a job. That's like, I'm clear, like I am supposed to do this thing, which means part of it is being on display. But otherwise in my life, oh my gosh, please let me like not be seen. Like let me get in and get out. So masking is sometimes not saying the thing that you really feel it needs to be said, or the truth, because you know that people don't actually want to hear the truth. And so you have to decode the whole situation and go, well, the last time I spoke the truth, it set everything on fire.
So relatable.
Maybe I don't want to do that this time. But it's burning inside. But you just go, nope, don't do it. Nope. You know, or I really don't like disappointing people. I will cry if you cry and I don't even know why you're crying. But I have to hold it in. I have to be stoic because then everybody says I'm too sensitive. Yeah, I don't know. Like people say, oh, what's up? How you doing? Do they want to hear the truth? You know, and a lot of people might complain about that issue, right? But it's the type of thing that I'm going to think about over and over for a few days, whereas the next person is over it in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
They don't get that I'm still processing this for the next week or so. And it's stuff like that. Like, who do I talk to about that? Or how do I stop it? You know, so what do I have to do? I have to mask that even when I'm alone because I got to do stuff.
Yeah, and it butts up against survival.
Yeah. And speaking of survival, if you need to feed yourself, but you're the only one around, but you're in a complete breakdown, meltdown, or shutdown, which actually happens where you just feel like you can't get up because you're overstimulated from whatever else, but you still have to eat. So you have to, you got to pull it together, you know, and make whatever. And then people go, oh, just come on, just get motivated. It's not motivation. It's like, it's actually a neural response. It's not just a choice.
You touched on this, and I wonder if you want to go more into it. You said that you got to a point where your old methods of survival, let's say, your old methods of masking, your old methods of trying to pull yourself back up weren't working anymore.
Yeah. The body and the mind gets tired.
Yeah.
Since we're on this topic, like I want to also put out there that statistically, people with autism are highly more likely to die of suicide. The number 2 killer of people with autism is suicide. And so that's alarming. That's really alarming. But again, my recent diagnosis and help with, a psychological professional who specializes in this stuff helps me give myself grace and helps me go, okay, it's connected to my condition. But yeah, I've struggled with suicidality a lot through my life, but it got really severe over the last year and a half or two. And the combination of that with being not only experiencing like an occupational burnout as a freelancer, but also an autistic burnout put me at the place where my version of meltdown or shutdown was to either just lay here and die or to actively die because I just couldn't take anything anymore. Pressure, work, even stuff I loved, I couldn't do it. I couldn't, barely get up off the sofa, and this is coming from a person who has been running a record label, teaching at a university, being a DJ, performing in shows, making films, touring here and there and doing this and that, mentoring people, having a YouTube channel, editing and shooting and making curriculums of all the YouTube channel stuff, while also creating my own stuff and learning new machines and going to networking parties. And you know what I mean? Like, I went from that to, you're lucky if I can even try and reply to your email after 1 month, because I am in full shutdown. I had a friend come to the house when I was at my worst, and I couldn't eat anything. I was just like, it's not that I couldn't eat, it's that I couldn't manage to go to the kitchen.
Yeah.
So anyway, it was that bad. And, I'm coming on the brighter side of things now, and which I didn't think would happen. And I don't have a full explanation for that just yet, except for because I did tenaciously reach out for support and use my past skills, which were used for basic business and survival, to now survive sort of in the German health system. I'm now in a place where I have daily, or at least several days a week, support with basic life stuff that is starting to free up my, used to be what had to be my mask, and is allowing me the rest that I require in order to regain my cognitive abilities, because I literally regressed. I lost all my function. And people were just like, oh, maybe you're just depressed. And I was, I went to the clinic. Oh, here, take some pills. And you guys, yeah, I'm sad. Yes, I had a big breakup, blah, blah. Yes, I'm sad. But it's more than that. Mm-hmm. And now that I have the proper care, because it took me 1 year inside the psychiatry system in Germany to get the actual care that I needed. And so the main care was actually a bit triggering for me, but I needed it to make me stop me from doing anything spontaneous. Mm-hmm. So now that I have the proper care, the sort of consent from a professional to just stay home for 2 weeks if I must, in order to calm myself down, get a grip, and feel like I can now flip an egg. Mm-hmm. But now that I'm practicing that and getting help with how to manage this, now I'm starting to have days where I can do several things in a day. I can clean the house and do some laundry and read a chapter and watch an episode and then meet a friend. And it's only been since the last 3 weeks, honestly, as compared to the last couple of years, that I've been able to do this.
Wow. Well,
I'm even writing songs again.
Oh, that's awesome. What do you find yourself writing about?
So right now, I'm just writing just to be like, I am creating because I feel like creating. That's number one. I love house music, so I'm just letting that be a focus right now, which doesn't always start with lyrics, but I often add them. So, for example, one of them is just me being really ridiculous and expressive in a way that doesn't give a fuck and is fun for me. And that's what it's about. Yeah. And then I have another one where I'm like, it's my lucky day because I get to look in the mirror. That's the concept anyway.
I really appreciate, you sharing. I know that the topic of absolute career and autistic burnout and emotional burnout is really sensitive, and I appreciate you going into it. And I think it's also important for people to hear, and also not about recovery, because I think it's not about that. It's about times of unwellness and wellness, and it's about that being changing and fluctuating our whole lives. And I also know that a lot of people have experienced either directly or indirectly through friends, especially I think in the queer community with the institutional care system in Berlin. And I'm curious what your experience with that was.
You mean with the with the health?
Yeah, because I know that there's fewer and fewer beds in mental health facilities. I know that it's hard for people to find therapy.
Sure. Even most of the health professionals recognize and acknowledge that a lot could be improved, but the resources are low. Yeah. So the whole world is going further into a mental health crisis, and the system is overloaded, and there's not enough practitioners to support it. And the convoluted bureaucratic system is not making it any easier. The people that run insurance companies, it's all about corporate gain. They're not actually there for us. I would say that during my navigation of the health and a psychiatric health circuit, it's way better than anything I would get in the US. So I'm super grateful that I could have a lot of the things covered that were covered under my health insurance here. Of course, I have criticisms. Of course, there's a lot of BS that happened, dealing sometimes with maybe racism or dealing with just being gaslit or underestimated just because you're in a mental health situation and nobody wants to listen to you. But let alone to do it in another language that's not even your mother tongue. I mean, the most difficult
right?
the most difficult part of it, like when I talk to my brother, I have to remind him, oh yeah, by the way, that was all in German. And he's like, oh, I forgot. Oh, because he's in the US, right? I'm like, yeah, it's a big topic because in the psychiatry system, most places are not going to have English support.
That's wild.
So I was actually turned away from a clinic. I was trying to get in a clinic desperately. And I had a Vorgespräch, like a meeting there. And then they were like, oh, yeah, your German isn't good enough. You're not going to benefit from this. Sorry, we can't take you. Because all the classes were like group classes. And I was trying to say in German, I can't do life anymore. And she was just like, yeah, your German's bad. Sorry, you got to try somewhere else. I was devastated. And I mean, again, fortunately, let's talk about the care of community and our queer community and our POC community in the land of Germany. We have to look out for each other because if we don't have family or friends here, and especially if German is not our mother tongue, we need each other. And the way that I survived before I got into official, professional medical care was by friends sometimes dropping by with groceries and checking in. And if the only thing that I could make was tortilla wraps with peanut butter and apples, then that's what you got for me. Thank you very much, because now at least I'm putting something in my body. It was friends that helped me survive, but they were not equipped. We're not all professionally knowledgeable enough to give full support to somebody, but all we can do is, and this is all the clinic actually does, it helps you eat and it helps you wake up and go to sleep at the same time every day. Like if you don't speak the language and if you can't attend the group things, then that's what it does. And then the other thing that it does that can be helpful for some is that it helps you realize you're not the only person suffering. And sometimes that's important because if I'm alone all day, every day for a couple of months, suffering in silence, I lose perspective on the world. So again, I say there's a lot of bullshit, but the benefits were that I got 3 meals every day. Even if I didn't like the food, I still got 3 meals every day. It got delivered to me in my bed if needed. And then it was cleaned up after and I didn't have to work for it. And then I could just commiserate or try to work through my feelings. And then, of course, like once or twice a week, you do get to see a doctor if they're speaking English. And, they made accommodations for me, fortunately, where I was at. And I was very lucky eventually to get that help. But I had to fight for it. And even fight while I was in there sometimes because people are ignorant. They only have their world. A lot of the people that work in these facilities, all they've ever known is that they went, they studied, they got a certificate, and now they have a job, and they've been at this job for 20 years. They don't understand what you're going through.
Right.
And at the end of the day, oops, I'm off work. Oops, I'm on holidays. Good luck. My colleague will care for you. And the colleague is like, who are you? I'm just temporary.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So when we're in, let's say, because I'm trying to also find new knowledge around this for myself and for communities, like when we're in a period of relative, let's say, regulation or a feeling of stability or wellness, or I don't know if wellness is the right word either, but if we're in a space where we have more capacity to do that building of network and community, What kind of things can we do in a really practical sense, would you say, to provide care for each other in the event that one of us suddenly really needs more care?
Based on my experience, right? Because every person has a different, need or scenario. But based on my experience, I think, like sometimes asking a person a lot of questions can be very overwhelming. But what you want to do is get the person as comfortable as you can before you start asking questions of them, because it's very overwhelming to be like, what do you need? How can I help? I don't know. I can't wash my ass today. What do you mean? Now I have to tell you how to help me?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But if you can get that person as comfy as possible. So, something some of my friends did for me before asking me how could they further help was just being like, first of all, have you eaten? Are you eating? Are you sleeping? Some of these are just the basics. Are you eating? Are you sleeping? Are you warm? Are you cold? Let's take care of that first. And yeah, maybe you have to listen to, some sad stories for an hour. But that's because that person needs an outlet or needs some comforts or needs something, And then the next step is, how can we get you that help? Because, you have to be honest with a person. You can't be like, I am now going to help you with your life. Like, one of the best things that a lot of people did for me was to tell me, listen, I can't help you with your paperwork. I'm shit at it. But what I can do is I can come over and cook you dinner. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank
you for that clarity.
Yeah.
But let me see if I can find somebody that can help you with the paperwork or get some tips, And so a lot of it was like the phone network of, who do you know that can help with this? Do you know anybody that can help with that? But the bare basics, eating and keeping your body in a good place, those are the basics. That's what the person needs. And if they can't do it for themselves, then it's going to be nearly impossible for them to wrap their head around anything else.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's a million things I could say about care. Like, I'm talking in the context of the suicidal breakdown that I had, but there's tons of people that are, getting various types of surgeries, gender-affirming surgeries and whatnot. And those are very real, life-altering moments of physical pain that you might experience or inability to do certain things. And one of the best things ever is that my group of friends put together a spreadsheet in a Telegram group and took shifts on supporting me to getting over surgery. So we can't do it alone. We can't each be a total superhero for other people. But if we can create even a small network of rotation of support until we can get that person into professional hands, I'm just saying, this is the type of thing that has saved my life.
Yeah, it's so important. And I think as I see these networks established, I just think, wow, what would it be if we were kind of always keying ourselves into these networks ahead of time so we could just spring them into action when they're needed.
Yeah. That would definitely be the ideal way, is to kind of already sort of have an understanding. It's like, okay, chosen fam, we keep this group and this is how we're going to do it. If any of us ever is down and needs this assistance,
I feel like we kind of are covering this in in many ways, but I'm going to go back to one of the questions I had written down, which was, what are you discovering about yourself as this working body as you age as a Black queer person?
Yeah. I am definitely coming to grips with the internalized ageism of society. Mm-hmm. I am constantly fighting the idea that as an entertainer who is, female and aging, is washed up at a certain point. Like, once you pass 40, who are you really? Is anybody ever going to hire you? And as my hair is seriously salt and pepper, and I'm allergic to dyes, and so I can no longer dye it, a youngish, fresh black. I see my age every time I look in the mirror just because of my salt and pepper. And I think it's more internalized stuff than anything that makes me feel more shy about entering any version of the workforce. Because I see and I interact with people who are 20 years younger than me that when I dyed my hair, they didn't know I was 20 years older.
Yeah.
And now it's clear I'm older. Don't call me auntie because I'm not ready for that yet, unless you're my actual niece and nephew. But holy cow, people getting up, offering me their seat on the goddamn bus. What the hell? So, meanwhile, I'm on my way to a DJ gig, motherfucker, whatever. I just didn't want to add another ism to my boxes to tick in my ability to navigate and survive on the planet. So I already was black. I was already queer and not having certain privileges that come with being a femme. I'm an immigrant, you know what I mean? And now I'm old? So I'm struggling with this in the sense of, in the tech world, I'm pretty good with tech stuff, but if I try to get a job in tech, I'm going to be interviewed by a 28-year-old.
Right.
And I'm 51. And whether I'm good enough or not doesn't matter when a person sees you and knows that you're not part of their generation. And aging, depending on whatever's been going on with my health, I've put on some weight, which I feel makes me look a little older, but also affects how people perceive you in a casting context. Like, am I going to get still the same kind of gigs as I got before, or am I now cast as fortune teller number 5? Yeah.
What are the questions that you wake up with right now, Sky? Like, what's some of the burning things that you're puzzling over?
My main puzzling question is it possible for me to have a future that allows me to rest?
Great question.
That's the number one burning question of the last couple of years. The question that kind of put me into the crisis even, which was, I know I need to stop working, but how should I?
Yeah.
Because then you don't eat, or then you don't have this or that. And so I have to figure out how to work while resting, or while trying to figure out how to rest. I have to work to allow me space to figure out how I might rest. What?
Right? Yeah, when you think about rest, what do you feel like you need to provide you that? And when you think about rest, yeah, how do you conceive of it? How do you like, some people are like, you know what? I want to retire. Or is it like, I love to work, just not to this pace? Or like, I love the work I'm doing. I want to DJ till I'm 85.
Yeah. I mean, of course, because we're in the context of the working world and capitalism and everything, the word retirement does come up for me. I'm trying to figure out how to not have to bleed to survive in my older age. So I would like to reach a point at which I can say, you know what? I don't work unless I feel like it. But rest to me mostly looks like my basic needs are met. Therefore, I can work or I cannot work. That's sort of like, in the most simplistic way I can look at it, that's where I'm at right now. So, for example, from a disability standpoint, from a health standpoint, I have been unable to work the last couple of years. But the only way I was able to calm down was when I knew that I had a home that I wasn't constantly having in jeopardy. And I knew that if I need tomatoes, I can have tomatoes. Just something juicy, like whatever a tomato is for you, Yeah. As soon as my tomatoes are threatened, or the possibility of the roof over my head being threatened, then I'm back in crisis. Then I'm in fight or flight mode. So for me, rest is being able to not constantly be in fight or flight mode.
Yeah.
Because only in that space can you tap into whatever creativity is needed to decide what's next for your life, which could be working or could just be like drawing pictures forever. And so that can look different for every person. But for me, it was only when I started to get little bites of that I was able to start writing music again.
Mm-hmm.
Or to even consider, okay, I've done so much now. If I want to make some kind of income, what's the best way forward for myself? I can start to think about that now because I'm not stressed about food and I'm not stressed about a roof over my head.
Yeah.
So now, only now, I can use that part of my creativity to say, what's next? What's healthiest for me?
Yeah. I mean, I wish that for you, and I wish that for all of us.
Yeah. Thank you. But yeah, there's this basic survival things that we as humans require in order to be our best selves.
Yeah. I know that Ireland recently passed, it's been all over the interwebs, this basic income for artists, because they discovered that, it also made economic sense for them. If that's a motivation, fine, I'll take it.
Okay, I guess. That's interesting, though.
I think so. Let's try that in Germany. Shall we? Sky, this is the last question I'll ask.
Yes,
you are a
please.
multimedia artist. I think of you as a musician, a producer, a tech nerd, in quotes, which I love. I love the nerdy side. A filmmaker, a business person, a curator, many more things that I'm probably not even listing, an activist as well. You made Reclaim the Beats Festival. You ran a label. You've worn many hats. If you were to say what's your purest form of expression, what would that look like?
Yeah. This is a really great question, by the way. I would say my my purest form of expression has to do with how much I love words and non-words that I make into words. I'm very much a poet, and everything that I do has a poetic foundation to it. Even if it's activism, even if it's tech, it's all about how can I express something that I have no words for, actually? Like, I've struggled with that majority of my life, which is why I've come to love words, because I try to come up with ways of combining words to actually give the meaning of what I actually feel inside, which I feel like is not possible with just like one word. So sometimes it has to come out in a photo or a painting or a sketch or a sound, or a combination of everything somehow that says, this is how I feel. And the reason I'm sharing it with you is so perhaps something can unlock for you, that you can try to access what you're feeling, or that you can feel the freedom enough to go there.
You just heard from multidisciplinary artist, musician, producer, and creative technologist, Sky Deep. You can read more about her in the show notes. I'm Mad Kate, and you've been listening to Sweat, Sexuality, Work, Extraction, Art, Theatrics. Sweat is a series of conversations about performance and performativity of the sexual and sexualized body in work. The theme music was composed by me and features the voice of performer and actress Lori Baldwin. Sweat airs first every second Tuesday of the month at 13 hours Central European Time on Collaboradio. Free Radio's Berlin Brandenburg. Afterwards, it's available for streaming wherever you get your podcasts. Sweat is a labor of love. The best way you can support the show is by donating a few euros regularly to my Patreon page. It costs just 10 euros a month for me to host my RSS feed and about 30 hours of my time to put this show together. I would be very happy for your support to keep the show running. Thanks so much. Until next time.